Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. As I noted in D2L, in lieu of class on Thursday the 26th and Friday the 27th, I'm going to be off campus. So this video stands in for class, those 2 days kind of getting us started. This is going to be a pretty short video, but I want you to take a moment and pause when I ask you to and do the work. It's going to make a difference in how you do the assignment that I've gotten for you here, and how you'll approach the prep work that's going to be due on Monday the 30th. So let's go ahead and get started. So Module 4 is all about exponential and logarithmic functions. And to get started with that, we really need to take a look at this idea of portion and percentage and being able to multiply those things together. So we're going to start with Module 4, Investigation number 1. Looking in problem number 1 of Module 4, Investigation 1 in your book or in the handout that was in the in D2L in this assignment, you can see this first problem is talking about a pretty simple scenario. On one day during a recent trip, you drove 340 miles. If we use 340 miles as our reference, then 1% of the distance that you drove that day corresponds to 1/100th of 340 miles. If that's not an obvious thing to you, you can think of percent as per hundred, which is what it literally means. So per hundred would mean 1/100th of what you're looking at there. So 1/100th of 340 miles gives you this tiny little portion here of the 340 mile trip. So the questions are down below here: what distance corresponds to 1% of the distance that you drove that day? So take a moment. I want you to think about part A and part B. What distance corresponds to 1% of the distance? And then to find that distance, we would multiply 340 by what value? So pause and take a moment and think about those two questions, and then turn your audio back on or your video back on. All right. So hopefully you said that what corresponds to 1% of the distance that you drove that day is 3.4 miles. And to get that, you needed to multiply 340 by 0.01, excuse me. Or you could multiply 340 by 1/100th. That would be another way to get that same value. But either way, you should get 3.40 miles. Same kind of question in C and D. If you had driven 1% of the 340 miles, what percent of the total distance do you still have left to drive? And then what is that distance in miles? And then part D says to find that answer in part C, you can multiply 340 miles by what value? And so the question is there. So take a moment and pause again and think about that portion. So if we take a look at that, if we've already driven 1% of our distance, then what's left is 99% of our distance. And to get that value, what that distance in miles is, we could either say 340 minus 3.4, right? So we could pull our calculator up and do 340 minus 3.4, and that would give us 336.6 miles, right? Just 336.6 miles. Or we could use multiplication to do that. We could take 0.99 times our 340 miles would also give us 336.6 miles. Or we could say that our 340 times 99 over 100 would be another way to do that. Would give us our 336.6 miles. Okay, if we want to prove that to ourselves, 340 times 0.99, and there's our 336.6 miles. Awesome. So we have talked a little bit, just very briefly, reminding ourselves about this percentage stuff. What I would like for you to do is to take a look at slide 3, or problems number 5 and 6 in your textbook, but I have reoriented them just a little bit to be able to use some language that we really need to be able to use in class. And the question is this now. So problems 5 and 6 say if you've got this price and this kind of change to the price, a discount, a markup, whatever, what is it that that the new price is? Okay, I want you to think about this problem, and in fact, I should have also included a column for that. So this is not going to be in your PowerPoint notes that I posted online, or maybe it will. Maybe I'll change that. I'll change that. But what I'd like for you to do is to calculate what is that new price. And then I want you to think about a few things. I want you to think about 4 different ways that we could talk about this. I want you to think about the new price is what percent of the old price. The new price is how many times the original price. In other words, what would you need to multiply the original price by to get that new price? And then I want you to think about these other two, the change in price. So think about what is the change in price. In fact, we can put in a column for that. Let's do that real quick. Let's see here. We'll just copy and paste this part. So you want to think about what is the change in price. So from the new price to the old price, what is that change in price? And then you want to think about that change in price is what percent of the original. In other words, so what's the percentage there? And then the change in price is how many times the original. To get that change in price, what would you have to multiply the original by? So for example, for this first one, the new price is what, right? So you figure that out, and you'd say the new price is what percent of the original. So the new price is what percent of $114. The new price is how many times the original. So if I had $114, what would I need to multiply by to get to the new price? And then what is the change in price? If I take the original price and the new price and subtract, what's the change in price? And then the change in price is what percent of the original. So this change in price is what percent of $114. And then the change in price is how many times the original. So if I wanted to get that change in price, what would I need to multiply $114 by to get that price? I don't want you to worry about this last column here, but I do want you to think about these last 2 rows, which are not in your textbook. So you may need to add some a sticky or something if you're going to use your textbook instead of the handout. These last 2 rows deal with some what ifs, right? If the price was X dollars and we had an M% markup, or if the price was X dollars and we had a D% discount, that's not how you spell discount, a D% discount, how would you calculate those values? And think if you can you use some reasoning to figure out some generalized way to talk about that. So that's what I'd like for you to turn in for the assignment that's due by 5 o'clock on Friday the 27th. That needs to be submitted in Dropbox by 5 p.m. is just this page right here. I'd like for you to fill in these boxes and give me as much of your work as you can. I asked you to submit that as a PDF instead of as an image because there's going to be a lot of work in here and it's going to be hard for me to see if it's an image file since I can't zoom in on those in D2L. So that's the assignment. Less than 10 minutes. Look at me. And then on so for Monday's prep work, you're going to go on to investigation 2. You're going to look at problem number 1. And it gives you a scenario here, and it asks you some questions about the expected resale value in dollars for these 2 devices, and thinking about which device you think will be of greater resale value 6 years from now. And then part C asks you to do some calculations to see whether or not that's a thing, like whether or not you made your predictions based on sound logic. So I'd like for you to do parts A, B, C, and D. You can do that in your textbook or you can do that on the slides. Doesn't matter to me at all. And you'll submit that for prep work by Monday morning at 8 a.m. It's probably the longest prep work assignment you'll get for the entire semester, but it does count as an online assignment in lieu of class, so I feel pretty good about that. So anyway, that's the assignment, and I will see you on Monday in class. Thanks.